Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Hi-Fi Rush, and Resident Evil 3. This is staying in. The spray that I use in my bathroom smells like McDonald's vanilla milkshake.
Hold
and
on.
it's really...
Right, stop.
It's really messing me
Stop,
up.
please.
Stop.
It's
You
really...
can't have that really serious,
Stop.
ponderous pause. And then open with that spray I use.
It's
Stop.
really, really messed up.
Right, okay. The one thing I just need clarifying right away before we go any further is it deodorant or is it a scented spray to make the bathroom? Who's smelling nice in this scenario, the bathroom or you?
The bathroom is smelling like
Fantastic.
a drink from McDonald's. Yes, that's exactly what it is. And it's cooking my noodle a little bit, basically. Because it smells identical to McDonald's vanilla milkshake. Now, I love McDonald's vanilla milkshake. I love it. I love the taste of it. It's absolutely delicious, right? It's maybe second only to strawberry milkshake from McDonald's, right?
I mean, they only do 3 flavours, so it's...
Actually, I think you'll find they do a few more than that if you actually ask them. They used to do a tropical. I think you can still ask for that. There is a banana you can ask for. And
Definitely
there's
a banana.
chocolate.
Well, okay, so 5. So
Right. So
second out
there's
of
a
top
few.
5. Yeah.
There's a few. But anyway, the reason that it's sort of spinning me out a little bit is that every time now I go into the bathroom, I go, oh, lovely. Lovely. And I'm in my mind is thinking, oh, brilliant. What a lovely smell to smell, right? But then consciously I know that what I'm smelling is a smell being masked that I should not be a fan of, right?
Right.
And so my brain is putting these two things together and making me question whether or not I even liked McDonald's vanilla milkshake at all.
Can I ask, how often are you spraying, Pete? And how aggressively?
I was going to say, is it automatic or is it manual operation?
It's Oh, well, here's the thing. If it was automatic, I would be okay with it because I could pass that out, right? I could think like, well, this is just an automatic thing. I don't know what's happened before in the last previous 15, 20 minutes. It could have been anything, right? No, this is a manual smell, right? So when it's being used deliberately, not automatically,
okay.
but very specifically.
I mean, you're shining the light on one specific person in your household here.
No, because it's also obviously I'm using the spray as well, right?
So you know that you're masking.
You know precisely what you're masking.
You know
Right.
exactly what you're masking.
Right. And it's made me kind of upset because I really do like McDonald's milkshakes. They are a lovely treat, right? But I feel like I'm going to have to either do one of two things. I'm going to have to change the spray or give up McDonald's milkshakes forever.
You've got to change the spray because the end game is that day that you go, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to have a nice vanilla milkshake. And you take that first sip and you're no longer tasting vanilla milkshake. That's
You're
the end game
transported.
here.
Right back to your bathroom.
Do you think the reverse has occurred, where somebody has gone, oh, I've never tried a McDonald's milkshake before, and in that weird kind of Proustian moment, it's ruined their bathroom for them?
I mean, it's certainly possible. The thing is, I watched that scene from Ratatouille the other day when the guy eats a thing and is then transported away.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right, into his childhood. Right, the food critic is transported away into his childhood. And that's the problem. That's what this is now doing for me. And I'm really worried that when
30 minutes later, you just come round.
I'm really worried that when I take a sip, that's where I'm going to get transported to.
Your bathroom.
Me.
There are worse places.
Is it possible, Pete, to know the brand and how they've described the flavour? Because you say McDonald's vanilla milkshake, but that's obviously not what's on the label. So what's it called?
Is it
It's
called
called-
Vanilla Dream or?
It is called Vanilla Cookie.
Okay.
Well, you've made your own bed there, haven't you, really?
Well, it is a limited edition, which is the thing that gives me some solace. So it means we can't keep buying it.
Well, no, because what limited edition means is that in a month's time, there's going to be hundreds of those on shelves in a store somewhere on sale for about 50p. so you can't shift them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick a load.
Surely
of them up.
limited edition would be something that smells like a McRib.
Could you set up an elaborate Ferris Bueller's Day Off style contraption so the spray is activated at random points throughout the day, so you lose that association? You're never sure whether it's a manual spray or an automatic spray.
Automatic spray. No, I can't, because unfortunately it's a hand spray.
But that's why I
It's
just
actually
said, can you set
Yeah,
up a Ferris Bueller's... but he's obviously never seen Ferris Bueller, so... You know.
No. I know what's going to happen, though, Sam. What will happen is the contraption will fail and it will empty the entire contents in one squirt. And Pete will never, ever be able to sell his house, ever.
And here's the master bedroom. Yeah, great look over the vistas of Bristol. Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. Oh, is this the bathroom? Yeah, no, yeah, we don't go into the bathroom. Oh, why? No, we just don't go.
It smells a bit a little bit like takeout.
Smells like a bakery in there.
So, I've been building.
Oh, building. Is this your kitchen?
No, Sam. No, not. That's too small.
No,
a
that's still in
job.
boxes.
No, actually, Dan, the sink is fit. Sam has seen my kitchen.
I've seen
As
part of it, yeah.
It's taking as long to build as the Death Star, but it's there. I've got a sink now. I've got worktops.
Hopefully a rebel doesn't
got an
come along
extractor
right
fan.
at the end and...
I've got an extractor fan, Dan. It's not extracting anywhere in particular at the moment because it's got
that's
no
fine. That's fine.
funnel to go into.
I think that's what most extractor fans do.
I think
They're just for
most
show.
extractor fans are just a little motor in a fan, just making a
to
noise
give the
to make you
impression
feel
that
like-
it's doing
yeah.
something.
But I've been working on a birthday present I got last year, which is I'm building a little diorama or a book nook. Do you know what a book nook is?
Oh yes, I do know these.
Isn't it like it's like a Kindle?
No, I think that was just called a Nook, wasn't it? One of the Kindle precursors.
Yeah, Nook. Yeah, like a Nook for books.
What do you mean a Nook for books? Like a
It was a
Kindle.
It was a.
and
it was
and
a
you
Nook,
think
wasn't it?
and you think that Chris Darby's building one?
When he's not finished his kitchen. I can't do the big stuff. I can only do the small
don't worry
fiddly
about that.
soldering.
I'm just doing soldering and capacitor attachment.
Yeah, that's why the PlayStation 5 was so difficult to make, because I had all the raw materials at my
You had to
disposal.
build your own one.
Yeah, sorry, I'm building my book nook. So this is a little diorama made primarily out of wood that slots into your bookcase, and you peer into it, and it's like a little miniature world. It's like you're peering down like a little alleyway. So the one I've got is like a Tokyo street, like an alleyway. So well, when it's done, it will look like this. You look in, there's like a metro car in the distance. There's like a noodle bar. There's like a residential area with some windows open. There's a little stream, and then some blossom that is trailing down into it. And it's got a little button to turn on the lights inside it so you can illuminate it. But it's really, really cool because it comes flat pack. Now, did any of you ever do Airfix models?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I never had the patience for Airfix models. I always used to get disappointed when I was like 7, and I'd say, "Oh, can I have that Thunderbird too, please?" You know, because I've done really well in my swimming, and get really disappointed when you open the box and it's just this
And
grey
you gotta put it all
plastic
together,
that is.
Yeah.
So, but my dad was like, "Oh my word, amazing!" And I remember the next day at breakfast, my dad there building this thing, like
Awake
he
or
was
no?
gone. Watching him like soak the transfers to apply them to it.
Oh, that was the
Stuff
riskiest
like
bit,
that.
the soaking the transfers.
But this is like wooden Airfix. So you get like a lovely instruction manual telling you which sheets you need, and some of them are like different types of wood. Some are like plastic because for windows and things like that, and you pop them out. Some things you just slot in, and to make that easier, you get given a little bit of sandpaper just to buff things down. It slots in beautifully. Other stuff you need a little bit of glue, but they provide that. They tell you where to put the wires and things like that. And I've been beavering away at this since November last year, just doing a couple of pages in at a time, and it is such an utter delight. And this comes from a company called Rolife, who started in 2017. And every so often I'll just sit down and I'll go into this Zen-like state of watching this lovely little miniature world develop, really. And it's just an utter joy. And they've got about 4 or 5 in the mix. It's like the same number of McDonald milkshake flavours. One of them's like a magic Harry Potter themed one, which is like Diagon Alley. but they can't call it that because it's not an official thing. And the one I've got is like a little Tokyo street scene, really. But it's just been an utter joy, really, to kind of have that little oasis there.
So I get these little book nook things advertised to me every single time I go onto Facebook. That though the book nooks, right wing YouTube videos, and underwear that doesn't chafe are the three sort of
the Holy Trinity.
Is that all one video?
And I guess like so the idea with this is you have all your books on the shelf, and then either at either end or like in between two books you have this little nook, and the idea is that it creates this like little like sort of like scene or something like that. Now I've seen
it's like a little window,
and the thing that put me off is the one they show on the videos are all like illuminated and really specially painted, and the reason I've never gone into them is because it's like I've always felt like it's that Airfix thing, right? It's like you see the image on the outside of the box and you go, wow, that looks incredible, I really want to own that, but I'm not the kind of person who's going to put in like hundreds and hundreds of hours into it. So is what you're creating like what the picture says, or is it all just bare wood that you've got to paint yourself and do all the electronics?
No, everything is what you see. Everything that you see on the cover is what you'll assemble. No painting at all. So you get these layers. Some of them are quite sturdy wood, but you'll get like a layer which is almost like a kind of like a cardboard cover. The best way I can think about it is, you know, when you've got like a typical mouse mat, not like a neoprene one, and it's got that thin layer of plastic on the top of the foam, the sponge. It's like that. Right. And you glue that on top of the wood, so it's like a veneer, really, essentially.
Right,
there's no painting whatsoever, so you could literally build it in an afternoon, and it's all done exactly how it looks on the box. That's what I like, because I don't have the patience for doing very fiddly painting, and that's perfect for me, really. This is, and I get that satisfaction of watching like the metro car is now there, or tram, sorry, is now being assembled. The little individual wooden slats and like the little billboards,
and the lighting and the lights and stuff, that all comes with it too.
Yes.
Oh, that is cool. See, I'm down for that, because now that like
I think you'd love it, Sam.
Makes it a quite nice little feature.
I have been tempted by them. The I don't really have like anywhere where I display books in that way that it would fit. So it is something that you would want to have on display, kind of with kind of a shelf full of books. I've got lots of books, but not really anywhere that I would put that. But they do look like absolutely stunning. Like that little thing where you do just want to peer right in there and get. You can tell just from looking at the pictures and stuff. You can see the amount of detail that's there, that you're not just going to have a glance and see everything. There'll always be little bits and pieces that you can just enjoy and embrace.
I should say, Dan, that let's stick with this theme. I think your downstairs toilet would be perfect, because you've got loads of books in there.
I do, yes. In my downstairs toilet, I have a large glass shelf full of all the books that I have, and I'm not sure if that's the place to introduce some small magical worlds.
I don't see why not. I reckon I could have done it in, say, a couple of hours if I wanted to just sit there and just do it. But I'm really enjoying just chipping away at it and just slowly watching it develop and build, really. It's like a rainy day activity, and it's just really relaxing, just having some music on in the background, following very simple instructions, and that wonderful, that lovely bumpy textured feeling when you've got super glue on your fingers. Does anyone else like that feeling?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that feeling's great. And a little bit of sandpaper buffing the wood.
Yeah, but this is incredible. I'm looking at the one that you've got, Chris, and it's kind of one of those things where you're gonna be absolutely the cock of the walk when you've got this up on your bookcase, because people are gonna people like me who don't know really what it is and what went into it. Like, they've done a great job of making it not look like it's flat packed. Like it looks like the actual creation of it and the actual the art design of it, like it retains so much of that tactility and that sort of DIY aesthetic. Like everything still looks like it's been made out of this like cardboard that you just like found lying around. Like it doesn't have this like horrible plastic manufactured feeling to it. It really feels like something that you've been able to sort of cobble together. Like it is, they are fantastic. A lot of attention to detail as well. Like even the little air conditioning,
Yes.
like
one of the
unit
first things I
sticking
built.
out, sticking out the side of the buildings. Yeah, this is super special.
So, like, have you managed to get into like a headspace for this stuff? Is it the same kind of zen as the Batmobile and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fan of building these kinds of miniature structures. I think there's something in that fascination with the miniature. Like, I was in Venice recently in this glass museum, and they had this tradition long ago they used to call them desserts, strangely. And they were these gigantic miniatures made out of glass of like gardens and stuff. And I found myself drawn to this material as something architectural, but in a miniature sense. It's that mixture of architectural and ornamental that I really quite like. Like miniature, you know how some people collect miniature figures? I'm more interested in miniature buildings,
Miniature
or miniature
figures.
structures.
Tell me more about this.
But there's one game that I've started playing that I've really been quite taken by, and I'm quite surprised I have been, which is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh boy!
Oh, now I'm interested in this, Daniel.
You should be.
because I was on the fence with this, but I saw some good reviews for this game.
I think it has had some. That's kind of why I hopped on board, because I think originally it came out following kind of the Avengers game, which I never really played, and I didn't kind of get a good feel for that from what I'd heard. It felt a bit kind of, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it felt a bit kind of loot boxy, and that whole idea of a game being a subscription because the stories would be added to it, and so to really experience the full game you'd constantly be having to download extra content, and that's just not how I play my games. And so when this followed it, I was kind of in my mind thinking, okay, this is just another spin-off from those Avengers games. But it was on it. I'd seen a couple of good reviews, so I thought, I've got this subscription now, this is here, I'll give it a go.
What are you got to lose? What are you got to lose?
Absolutely, what have I got to lose? And so I thought I'd give it a go.
Just
It
time.
also helped that as I was trying to decide what to play, I had a quick look on see who was online, and Sam was online playing Guardians of the Galaxy. So I'm like, well, I'll play this then. Victim to peer pressure that I am. So in Guardians of the Galaxy, you play just as the character of Star-Lord. So you obviously have the Guardians, which is Star-Lord, Rocket, Groot, Gamora, and Drax. When this first got announced, I assumed you would play as a co-op or switch between the characters, because that's generally how these games play.
And that's how Avengers
However,
played as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of thing. That's how you kind of expect these things to happen. But what this game does is it just puts you in the character of Star-Lord, and that kind of accomplishes two things. One, enables them to tell a much more focused story, because you can sit with one character and you can look at his backstory, you can look at how he reacts to things, and you can then kind of look at the other characters kind of from a distance. But the other thing it does is, the thing with the Guardians of the Galaxy is the character of Star-Lord and Peter Quill, he's just a normal guy. He's good with guns, but he's just a normal guy. And one of the things that the game does in terms of working kind of teamwork is when you're in the middle of a battle, you take on the role of directing what people do. So you'll be fighting, shooting and running around and melee and all that normal stuff. But you can also kind of on the D-pad press L1, so on PlayStation, press L1 and then say, Gamora, hit that guy. And she'll run over and she'll take a strike. Or Groot, you do this. And they all have slightly different things. So Groot will usually restrain people. Rocket will usually throw a bomb. Drax, he's kind of really hardcore melee. And then Gamora will come in with a big swipe with her sword. So you do have this feeling of kind of directing people. And as a result, it kind of suits then to be the character of Peter, because if it was the other way around, Peter he doesn't really have those special skills that all the others have. Which leads me on to possibly my favourite part of this game. Because I don't want to go into too much into detail in terms of kind of story or anything like that, because it is a really good story, but it has a mechanic which I've never seen before, and it's called the huddle mechanic. And basically what it is, when you're working in a battle and you're doing this kind of teamwork, after a while, if you've been working as a team, you build up this kind of energy bar for a huddle. And when it's kind of activated, you can press kind of a combination of buttons and you activate the huddle. And what this means is Peter basically switches his Walkman on and calls everyone to him to give everyone a pep talk. And so everyone kind of, it goes into this big cutscene, and the 4 members come up to you and they say, "Oh God, this battle, it's going really badly. We're going to lose. How can we manage this?" Or it might be like, "God, these guys are amazing. Like this, we're doing amazing, guys. We're going to win this." And then you have to give them a choice of one of 2 pep talks. And it's usually fairly obvious which is the pep talk to give you. It gives you hints as to that. And if you get the right pep talk, all of your team get a boost. But not only that, but when you return to the battle, like 80s music is blaring out whilst you battle. And it's amazing. Like, I was like fighting alongside to hit me with your best shot. And suddenly I'm like, yes, this is amazing. The first time I did it, I actually got the pep talk wrong. So in that case, I'm the only one who gets the boost. And there's a different kind of music playing. The first time I did that, I was listening to Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up. And when that happened, I was like, yes, this is very, very good. Because suddenly, it's just like that whole idea that made the film of Guardians of the Galaxy so popular. That kind of mixtape idea of music and that kind of nostalgia, that's right in there. And there's so much good music in this game that when it does that, and it really kind of gives it a whole boost to that whole regular battle. And it's just something I've never seen before. It's basically a whole thing of build up energy bar, give everyone a boost. But it kind of putting this whole huddle aspect, and that's what Peter is. Peter isn't the superhero. He's the leader. He's the guy who gives the pep talk. He's the guy who holds everyone together. These kind of disparate characters who should be kind of fighting against each other. He's the glue that holds it all together. And it's kind of a perfect encapsulation of what he is able to do for this team with this whole idea of just like, yeah, I'm going to play music to fight to. And I'm going to put on this song, or I'm going to put on all these great tunes, or, as I found, Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up. It was that point that I went, okay, I see what you're doing here. And it's that level of creativity that I've just really, really embraced in playing this.
I feel a bit weird saying that it's a great game because I'm still playing it now, and at any point I'm expecting Peter Quill to turn to the camera and go, "Oh, just kidding. Here are the microtransactions, kids. Do you want to play as Groot? That'll be $5.99, please. Here's the grind." Like, I'm kind of playing it just going, this is really good. This is really good, and this is from the same, it's not the same developers, but this is the same publisher that brought us Marvel's Avengers, and they actually did, made a really good single-player, focused, linear, third-person action game. And it's obvious, some of it feels very sort of bare bones, but bare bones in the way that I liked in games like Stranglehold and Wheelman and Blood on the Sand.
Streamlined.
Yes.
They know what they want to be and they go for it.
Yeah, they know what they want to be. They go for it, even though the budget isn't necessarily there all the time. Like the combat that Dan was talking about has this really nice RTS feeling to it.
Right.
But really, it's just, you end up pretty much doing L1 down, L1 left, L1 up, L1 right all the time, just waiting for the meters to flick around. There are some interesting things you can do. Like Rocket has a grenade that brings people together. You can bring all the enemies together, get Groot to smash them down, and then get Drax to sort of hit them while they're on the floor. But really, it's just you do the motions every time, but it, as Dan was saying, it gives you the feeling of being a leader. Peter Quill literally has an ability that lets you hover above the battlefield as you're doing this and as you're shooting. So you're literally hovering around, directing the other 4 members of the Guardians of the Galaxy to fight. And yeah, I just waiting for the penny to drop, and it's not dropped yet. And I'm sort of 5 hours in. I think, Dan, have you completed it now?
No, I think I don't. I think I'm pretty close to completing it, and I mean, the penny that you speak of hasn't dropped.
Okay, that's good. So that means it's probably not going to. I got worried when I found a skin for Groot which referred to the Guardians of the Galaxy film.
Yeah, I found one for Drax for that.
But they do such a good job of making it feel so separate from the movies, but yet relatable. You can come to this knowing what the Guardians of the Galaxy are if you've only interacted with them in the Marvel films, but come away having a very, very different experience and not yearning for those characters, not yearning for those depictions of the characters that you've seen on screen. These are very much still their own people and their own characters, even if they're pulling off the same sort of personality tropes. You know, like Groot just says I am Groot. Drax is very straight talking and just says what's on his mind. He doesn't speak or understand metaphor. Rocket's very sort of angry and aggressive, but still, even though they share those personality traits across the two mediums, they're still very much their own characters, and it's a remarkable job of the writing that it manages to get away with that.
Yeah, I think because there's a number of times where there is kind of sort of branching narratives, basically in the sense of like there is a cutscene perhaps happening, there's a conversation happening, and then it kind of cuts to you, and it happens quite a lot, but where it cuts to you and you choose between kind of two different options, and then sometimes you'll have Rocket will remember this, that kind of thing. But what I found really interesting is that I think a lot of time when you have those kind of things, when it actually plays out, sometimes if you've picked one, it kind of plays out and you think, well, that doesn't actually sound like the character. That wasn't how I imagined it. And for me, every time I've picked an option, it has always been delivered and written and delivered in a way that felt true to the character. Like, there are two opposing options I could have chosen, and it didn't matter which one I chose. It's obviously going to come out with a different outcome, but the feeling of what's actually been said by the character, it feels kind of really real. Really, you can tell that the writers have understood it, and I think it just goes into the whole thing of it. It creates a really interesting world that perhaps I haven't really seen before. Like simple things that kind of encapsulate that. In the Milano ship, you can walk around, and in the center there's like a console, which like the coffee table. You can inspect it, and it says like this is like a kind of this fancy pants thing which will check all of your weapons and all this stuff. Unfortunately, the subscription has run out, so it's not in use at the moment. It's kind of like that's the Guardians. They would have had that, but it's broken. It's not. Yeah. It doesn't work. It's a hodgepodge of all these different, and it's perfect kind of things that kind of lead in and create this world that just feels really real without being that obvious cash into what the films were. But also because there is an element of kind of traveling around the galaxy. And what I found really interesting is we've all played kind of these kind of epic space adventures, the likes of your Mass Effect and stuff like that. And they're all beautiful and lovely and all that stuff. But I always kind of find that they all kind of look similar. Like these like alien worlds kind of look similar. If you look at Halo, you look at Mass Effect, they kind of look the same. There's lots of kind of big metal monoliths and lights and all this stuff. The worlds you go to in Guardians of the Galaxy genuinely feel alien. Genuinely feel like there's a place with like huge, massive mushrooms, or there's a whole thing where so much of the planet is all on these massive platforms, and it's everything feels interesting. There's a few areas where you're kind of industrial zone type thing where it kind of feels like you've already seen it before. But I would go to all these different planets, and they feel new. They feel interesting. They're doing interesting stuff that feels like someone's actually sat down and they've not taken the kind of cookie cutter alien world. Let's pop it on here, get some space lasers, ABC, done. There's a lot of thought, like when you go to like the planet Nowhere, which people may know from the films and stuff. There's so much interesting stuff going on around the world that you kind of want to explore it, and it's just walking around, you kind of look around and everything is interesting. It's so colourful and bright, and it's just, we're so used to kind of drab like silvers and browns and stuff for those kind of worlds a lot of the time. Whereas this, you go to places and it's huge kind of contorting pink vines that go around, and it's just everything about the game I've just found to be really interesting. It's been an absolute delight.
It really feels like we've turned a corner in sci-fi and video games, whereby we went through the era of the brown, the grey, the silver, and now I think we're much, much further now into the more colourful sci-fi future, and not even necessarily like utopian stuff, still dystopian stuff, but stuff that is more than just here is the desert planet, here is the mud planet. Like, you know, playing Outer Worlds recently, and it's the same.
So good.
Megafauna absolutely everywhere. Like, you know, even on the like standard normal grassy planet, there's incredibly colourful creatures on there, or there's bright neon signs from it's a future that's bright and it's bold, which I think is more interesting. Yeah, I think it's just more interesting.
Can I ask, what are the merits and limitations of it being a solely single play experience? Because you said it makes you feel like a leader of this ragtag crew, but I'm just thinking, if the four of us had encountered this as a multiplayer experience, and we've said in the past that typically for us, those kinds of experiences are 7 out of 10 games. They seem to be the best ones for us. Would we ruin this game if it was multiplayer? That's what I'm saying, basically.
Yeah.
Would we lose some of the lovely things that you were talking about?
I think the whole game would shift, because I think if it was a 4/5 player game, then the whole of the emphasis would have gone on the combat and would have gone on of how that works. However, with Guardians, the strength is the writing, the strength is the character and the story that it's trying to tell, which is why the combat is kind of not pushed aside, but it's very, very, very streamlined. Like, the writing is so sharp, it's really, really good. Like, if you think about, any dramas you see, any really good sort of even comedies or anything like that, it's very, very rare that you get more than 2 or 3 people on screen speaking at the same time. Whereas in Guardians, you've got 5 characters all with something to chip in, all with something to say, all of the bloody time. And don't get me wrong, when you're trying to do puzzles in a room and they're all just berating you for the whole time, it's a bit annoying. But on the whole, when you're like getting from point A to point B and just going through these interesting worlds, the conversations that you have on the way feel incredibly organic, and they feel like they've come from a place of genuine understanding about who each of these people are, and with a history behind it as well. Like, there's very little sort of exposition. Like, no one ever says, oh, Peter, I bet you're a bit sad because, your mum died and you don't know where your dad is. Oh, boo-hoo. Like, there's none of that sort of... The writing is only there to serve the character in the story. It's not there to ever serve the player in a way. Like, on one occasion, I was in this place and Rocket had tried to basically, to help us get out of this location, he jumped onto this drone which was floating around this antagonist, and we were meant to like distract the antagonist whilst he was working on this drone. And so you do all the like little like choices and have like all this like nice snappy dialogue, and I didn't do it. And and he got found out that he was trying to like hijack this drone. In the corner it went, Rocket will remember this. You didn't give him enough time to dismantle this drone. Now you've just got to wing it. And I was like, there's as well as that like in-depth, wonderful like character building it does all the time, it just has a general wit and self-referential behavior to it, which really rounds off the whole package, which I think would be absolutely like, can you remember any dialogue or any story from Lost Planet 2?
No, because we were talking over it.
Yeah.
I think the key thing you've just said there, Sam, in describing that scene is you described it as obviously Rocket doing that, and then you said, and we had to delay things. We had to distract him. You're only in control of one character, but it feels like you're the whole team. That you are looking after the whole thing. And I think that's kind of a really interesting thing there that you just said, kind of off course, because that's the feeling it gives you. The feeling you gives you of you're constantly, just like with when you're playing Uncharted or The Last of Us or those Naughty Dog games where you've purposely got like the God of War games where you've purposely got multiple characters on screen at all times to have conversations to enhance the world. And as you say, we've got those 5 characters there and the conversations are consistent and the characterizations are consistent. You've constantly got an animosity between Gamora and Drax, and that never really resolves itself because of the history that they've had. This hasn't been pulled in from the films where they've perhaps kind of settled their differences a bit. Like the whole thing of Gamora being Thanos' daughter exists in this kind of in their relationship. And it's that consistency which I think really just sells the whole storyline.
I've been playing another third-person action game, and it's kind of been my little companion alongside Guardians of the Galaxy. because it's like the same, as in, it's very linear. You walk along these corridors, there's a little bit of platforming to do, you walk into a room and all the doors shut around you, and then you've got to defeat the enemies before you can then move on to the next section. However, there is a slight twist to how this game plays. Now, you may have seen it and you may have heard about it, but it was kind of like shadow released earlier this year. It's called Hi-Fi Rush.
Okay.
So it was released with no fanfare, no trailers, no hype, no nothing. It was just released. It's published by Bethesda but developed by Tango Gameworks. And unfortunately, at the time of recording, it's only on Xbox and PC, and I've been playing it courtesy of my Steam Deck.
Oh, have you got a Steam Deck, Sam?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, do you want to hear more about it?
No.
But the main crux of Hi-Fi Rush is that it's a rhythm action game.
Mm-hmm.
So think Guitar Hero meets Devil May Cry. So I think Pete will immediately love this game and give it 10 out of 10 because all the protagonists are named after food or tea.
Perfect. 10 out of 10. No, straight in. Yep.
You don't need to. He doesn't even need to play it.
Done.
He doesn't even need to play it. It's done.
So
Game of the year.
there are characters in it called Macaron. There's a peppermint. There is a cat called 808, but I think that's referring to the 80s drum machine than it is the food.
All right.
But you play as Chai, who volunteers to be part of this thing called Project Armstrong, which is basically like a program where they replace certain limbs with cybernetic parts, and then you go and like take part in this like volunteering program. So he's a disabled character. He has an arm that doesn't work. You don't know why. He just has a disabled arm, and he volunteers for the program, but something goes wrong during the process, basically, and his iPod falls into the machine with him. So he gets this new metal arm, but his iPod also gets fused into his chest. So like, Iron Man style, sort of glowing radial in the middle of his chest, but it's got an iPod in it. And from that moment on, the entire world becomes filled with music, and everything you do in the world from that moment on, and everything that happens in the world from that moment on, is in beat with music. So as you run, as you're taking steps through the world, each of your steps is in time with the music. NPCs will move in time with the music. So if they're just standing there, like having a chat to one another while you're wandering around, they'll sort of like nod their heads and or maybe they'll like click their fingers in time with the music. Like there's some like industrial zones, and a bit like a 1940s Walt Disney cartoon, like the chimneys will like pop up and down in time with the music, or like pistons will like move in and out in time with the music. So everything as you're going around is like in sync, and it's this it creates this hallucinatory experience where everything's just like perfectly in balance, and everything's just
harmonious.
Everything's harmonious, but of course it's not harmonious narratively. Like, you've got people to kill or robots to.
I do love plot devices that make absolutely zero sense. However, are just fun enough that you kind of go, you know what? I don't care. It's great.
Yeah.
Why is there music? Oh, an iPod fell in him. Oh, okay, fine. That's cool.
This is a very PlayStation 2 era video game.
Yes, isn't it? I mean, it feels a lot like the Jet Set Radio sort of generation of.
It feels like that time
that
when Capcom was doing stuff like God Hand and Beautiful Joe.
Yes.
This. I mean, I'm watching videos for it at the moment. It looks like a 3D Beautiful Joe in some ways.
It's got the same cell shaded art style, and the animation, the story, and the writing is sort of flits between incredible but also quite lazy and shonky. Like, there will be some incredible moments, and then Chai will say something like, oh, you sound like a video game tutorial, and you're just like, oh, you just lost the entire
9.5
moment.
out of 10. Fine.
Momentum you were going for. So so as well as like infusing itself in the world, what the actual like interesting thing and why I absolutely love this game is that the music feeds into the combat itself, and the combat and being successful in the combat relies on you being able to sort of play to the beat of the music. So the aim of the game is to essentially hit enemies in time with the beat. The more you hit enemies in time with the beat, the more damage that you will do. And just like Devil May Cry or games like that, the aim of the game is really to like build up combos and like string attacks together, and you're ranked at the end of each fight. So you'll get like a ranking based on how your highest combo, how quick it was to clear the area, and how good your timing was. Now, it's a bit untrue for me to say that the aim of the game is to hit enemies in time with the beat. The actual aim of the game is for you to press the button in time with the beat.
Yeah.
Because I think what Hi-Fi Rush does, which I appreciate more than anything, is at no point does it want to sacrifice the joy of the experience in case you just have a little bit of naturally bad timing when it comes to music. So
Perfect.
And what I mean by that is, even if you press the button off the beat, Chai will always hit on the beat. So visually, you're always seeing a perfectly in tune, in sync version of the game and what you're meant to be playing. There's also never that horrible moment where you falter when you're building up a combo. Do you remember? Did you guys ever play Rock? You must have played Rock Band and Guitar Hero, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was in a band.
You know that bit where you're at the end of Muse's Horses of whatever it is,
Nice
and you've
side
done
down,
all
yeah.
the. And you've done all the diddle 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 diddle, and you like 100 combo, and then you miss it, and it goes konk.
Yeah, I hated that.
And you just go, oh. In this, it avoids. It manages.
That's
to
really
avoid,
good. That's really good.
That. If you miss a combo, you just miss a combo. The music carries on playing.
Have you, Sam? You've played Sayonara Wild Hearts, haven't you, on my Switch?
Yes.
So, yeah. What you were saying reminds me of that, and I just wanted to ask actually, how long is a typical level in this? Would you say?
Probably. I'd say levels are quite long, probably about an hour each, but they tend to follow quite a recognizable pattern where there'll be a bit of platforming, and then there'll be like a boss or some kind of big event, and then there'll be another part to the level which will be a bit more platforming and a bit more like of a boss. So there's like, I think there's 6 bosses in the game, so each level or each song, as I think it's called in the game, is broken up in that way. So it's quite easy to tell. It's quite easy to check in and out because you know when you get to a denouement, a sort of like a bigger, grander fight, that you're able to stop. And the levels themselves are also songs. So there's songs that have been specifically written for the game, which will play throughout the level. And at first I thought it was going to be, right, I'm going to have to listen to this same song playing over and over again for an hour. Maybe more if I'm not very good at the game.
Yeah.
But what it actually does is the song will change as you go through the level. So sometimes you'll be listening to the full song, but maybe it's just like the verse, and then you'll listen to the chorus, and then maybe they'll take all the guitars and the keys out, and it'll just be like the bass and the drums just like hitting away for a bit, so you get a bit of a slightly different feel for it. And then you enter into arena and you fight, and then suddenly the song out of nowhere, as your combo grows, gains like extra levels, and like guitar solos start playing. You can hear the crowd chanting your name, and the whole experience gets fuller and brighter and verdant, and it's incredible. And I've never been the one for remembering things like combos or really like going for that. I would just like maybe remember 2 combos, and just those would be my go-tos, and I'll just do whatever. But because of the link that this has with music, I can fire off like 4 or 5 very quick combos because I'm not remembering the button presses per se. I'm remembering the rhythms and the sort of the patterns with the music as it's happening. So it's such a interesting and vibrant game, and the music as well, I think, is perfectly pitched for someone like me who was, you know, really getting into music in like the early thousands, because it's got this wonderfully like late 90s grungy style to it. Like during the boss battles, you'll get a properly licensed track. So they have things like the first boss battle is to a song by Nine Inch Nails.
That's cool.
And you get introduced to the game with a song by the Black Keys as well. So it's got that. It's got like a really grungy but poppy beat and sound to it. As I said, unfortunately, it's only for the Xbox and the PC at the moment. But I hope. I mean, Bethesda's owned by Microsoft now, so I don't know whether it will ever come to anything else. But I absolutely adore it, and it will definitely be in my Game of the Year conversation that I have with myself at the end of the year. It's really special. I love it.
One of the games I think we all got into. Well, one of the games I think that we owe a lot to is a game called Catan. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. Heard of this?
The little
Catan?
game that could.
The little game that could, eh? And obviously, if you follow the gaming news, then the creator of it, a guy called Klaus Turbe, actually passed away relatively recently. He was the creator of Catan, and pour out a fiddy for him.
Fiddy?
A fiddy? Is it a 50 or a 20? What do you
40.
pour out? Is it a 40?
Pour a 40.
Well,
Yeah,
split it down the
40
middle.
ounce.
I'll tell you what then. Yeah, split it down the middle. We'll pour him out a 40. And as listeners will probably remember, we went to a couple of episodes back. We went to Aircon, and one of the things that, if you follow us on Insta, you'll have noticed is that I picked up as part of my haul from Aircon. I picked up Catan Scenario: The Helpers, and so I broke it out the other day because I thought I got a little bit nostalgic for Catan, and I got thinking about it because I actually love Catan. I know not all of us are massive fans of it, but I think Catan is one of those games that I think we all accept that we owe a huge debt of gratitude to that game for essentially kickstarting board games, right? Like,
yes,
board games in the way that we know them now. Like, before I played Catan,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And like I think I played Catan. I think one of the first times with you, Sam, Kris, Dan. I think we were all
Sam's
together.
Yeah, I remember that was
birthday,
probably
wasn't
the
it?
first like new board game, kind of after my youth of kind of Monopoly and stuff. But
Right.
we all played that together.
And I've never forgotten that. And it was a game that I really, really enjoyed playing, and I still enjoy playing. In fact, I play Catan quite a bit. It's one of my favourite games. I've got a whole bunch of the big expansions and all that good stuff. So I picked up Catan Scenario: The Helpers at Aircon, and didn't know really what to expect from it. It came out, I think it was last year, 2022. There was a previous version of it in 2010, but this is like an updated version with a couple of new cards and all that kind of thing. And this is different from the usual Catan expansions. So usually with a Catan expansion, you get some major new feature or mechanic within the game, which is so with seafarers, it's surprise, surprise, seafaring. Traveling from islands to island. With cities and knights, it's mostly about cities in your space, and it has more of a focus on things like knights and not combat per se, but slightly more aggressive actions. Those sorts of things. The Catan Scenario: The Helpers is a much smaller expansion, and it's about a tenner. So it's about, what, $15? Is our exchange rate still okay? Yeah, maybe $15, something like that, US. And what you get is basically a small box of 12 cards, each of which are a character. And each of these are the helpers of Catan. And one of the things I think that Catan gets a quite rightly slightly negative name for sometimes, certainly from people who aren't much of a fan, is that it can get a bit swingy. It is quite random in places. And one of the things that I've found with Catan is the further I get into it as a game, I've found that the more the expansions reduce the randomness, the more I enjoy Catan. So Traders and Barbarians, for example, introduces a whole bunch of new things that modify down the randomness, which is really good. And this Catan scenario, the Helpers, is similar in that way. So what it does is you get these 12 different helper cards, and they are double-sided. And effectively, what they do is each player of Catan, and remember the core idea of Catan is that you are building out settlements, building roads to connect those settlements, building cities on top of them, getting victory points and winning. That's kind of like the core idea behind Catan. What happens in this one is each player has a helper essentially like in their hand. And what this helper can do is kind of various, really. Each one has a special power. So there is Ryan, picking one at random. Ryan. So Ryan, after you do the production roll, so this is where you figure out, am I generating wheat and wood and wool?
Yes,
right?
yeah.
After this has been resolved, i.e. all of the resources are given out, you may choose one opponent who has more victory points than you. Look at their hand of resource cards and take one of your choice.
Oh my word.
That's a special little power. And then when you use that, so you have your Ryan, and it's on the sunny side, so that each card has sunny and nighttime, daytime, nighttime. And you can say, okay, well, I'm going to keep hold of Ryan. And now that I've used Ryan's power, I'm going to keep hold of Ryan. You flip the card over to the nighttime, and then after you use Ryan's power a second time on the next turn, or whenever it is that you want to use it next, you then have to trade Ryan back into a pool of the other helpers. As I say, there are 12 of them in total. You trade them into that pool of other helpers, and you have to choose another one. So you're constantly shifting and tweaking what kind of powers you have at your disposal to help give you the best advantage for whatever you're lacking in.
So it's like a tempo agency.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Helpers, right? So obviously we talked about Ryan's one there of, basically taking points, almost like the blue shell there. Ryan is essentially the Mario Kart blue shell of catching back up to the person that's in front. Well, Stina, she basically allows you to trade as many times as you like with the bank in one turn at a cost of 2 to 1. So usually you would trade resources of 4 wheat or 4 sheep or 4 wood for 1 of any other resource. Well, with Stina at your side, in your turn, you can trade 2 wood or 2 wheat or 2 wool for any 1 resource that you want. And what that means is if you're particularly stuck, let's say, for example, there are 5 resources in the game, in the standard game. If you've only got access to 3 of them, or maybe 4 of them, and you really are struggling to not get that 5th resource all of the time, you just, what it's like. You're always, it's always, with Catan, it's very easy to get into a position where you just don't have this one resource, right? And nobody wants to give it to you because nobody has it. Well, this 2 for 1 thing is a really powerful ability. It allows you to have more control over the randomness of the standard dice mechanic of how you generate resources.
So I obviously can see how kind of the helpers affect your strategy when you're playing. Does it affect kind of like the way you play in terms of what helpers other people have? So, for example, using Ryan as an example, would you find yourself perhaps stockpiling certain cards? So if someone did try and take a card from you, it's kind of less obvious which one you've got some safety net there. Do you find yourself playing slightly differently to combat what other people might have?
Yes, for sure. So, for example, in situations in which I know that my opponent has access to Stina and her 2 for 1 power, I am much more likely to want to trade with that person. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Because basically, while I might be able to be like, well, maybe you make it worth my while and give me 2 wheat for this 1 wool. Well, if I know they've got Stina, I could be like, well, I actually do need that. I actually do need what you have, so I'm much more likely to work at 1 for 1, right? So I'm changing my strategy to build around those ideas. In addition, there is the character of where are they? There is one
I
really
love this.
fantastic.
It's like it's just like blind. They turned Catan into Blind Date, really. It's just like, Ryan, come on down. Ryan's a 34-year-old labourer from Catan. Oh, he's gonna make your wood really sellable.
Go on. So Hjogni, hopefully I'm saying that right. H umlauted O-G-N-I. Hjogni is a shipbuilder. Okay. With and a highly gifted craftsman. You may remove one of your end roads, so a road that doesn't connect any other piece of connect to anything else other than, it's like a hanging off at the end, basically, right? It's like on its way to something else. You may remove it and then place it on another location instead, as long as you follow the rules of placing roads normally. So let's say, for example, your opponent has just done something to you where you're like, oh, okay, they've blocked me off on this thing. Then I might want to use that to circumvent them blocking me off. But more than that, let's say I'm playing for the longest road. Maybe two of us out of a group of 3 or 4 are playing for the longest road. Well, it might be that an action that I took earlier in the game really made me not think too hard about where I was placing my roads, and it kind of locked me out maybe of having the longest road victory condition.
Yeah.
Well, now what it allows me to do is actually change that around. I actually used that card in the last time that I played with Alex to divert a road that I previously built into a different direction. Played that card, built another road, and then built a settlement because I had just enough resources to do all of this. Slap bang in the middle of her longest road that she had. Broke the road in half. Stole the longest road victory card, which is worth 2 victory points. And in the end, that was what helped me win the game, right? It's these little things that they twist the rules a little bit, and that's fun in and of itself. But once again, it's that thing of giving you more options to think about, more strategy to utilize, without doubling down and really becoming the only person who can do that. One of the things in Catan that happens very often is somebody becomes the wheat king or the sheep king, right? Like,
yes.
And that's because you're the person who basically controls the thing that nobody else has got access to.
That's all the resources, yeah.
In this,
You're Ryan King.
You're Ryan King. Who's Ryan King?
I think as someone who really doesn't like these types of games, that's wrong, because I do like these games, but I'm rubbish at them because I am terrible at bartering. Sure. Absolutely, I just end up offending people like round 1 and then I'm done.
Yeah.
This is really intriguing because in those environments I can still be bad at my bartering, but having these cards gives me another way in that I can I can kind of combat the fact that I'm terrible at it, but it's okay because Ryan's going to come and help me and I'm going to just take what I want anyway, even though I've asked Sam for 2 wheat and he's thrown them back in my face.
On principle, no. I don't like Catan, but this gives me pause for consideration to play it again, definitely, because I think that, as you're saying, Pete, though, the ability to get yourself out of a hole or to emphasise and put a bit more sparkle on things like the trading really appeals to me.
So Catan continues to be one of my favourite games, and myself and Alex have been playing it a lot more recently, and I'm going to keep delving into more of the expansions and all that sort of stuff as I continue to go on. I don't think I would play Catan vanilla anymore. I just don't think it's
vanilla
a game
cookie
that
vanilla cookie Catan.
I think that's the end of the podcast, isn't it? Really.
Well, I do have to be honest with you and to say that I recently did moonlight on another podcast recently.
What?
And I did promise the creator of that podcast that I would mention it on our podcast. So I hope that's all right. But it was Richard. I was on We're Not Wizards.
Oh, okay. Right, fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Friend of the
allow
show.
that. We'll allow
That old
Friend of the show,
chestnut.
Richard. Oh, Chestnut, yeah. He was on because it was a very special one, actually, because he was interviewing Sherwin Matthews, who we have spoken about a bit on our show as well, because he was involved with the creation of Horizon Zero Dawn and Resident Evil 2 and also Resident Evil 3.
The
Board games, and all great board games actually, and all great video game adaptation board games. And it was a really great chat. And I just I knew that Richard was speaking to Sherwin, and I kind of just invited myself to the conversation because I was just really, I just really wanted to know like more
what Sherwin thought about squash.
what Sherwin thought about 4-strength squash. Actually, we spoke more about lawnmowers and a game that Richard was pitching in a way about running a coffee shop. Anyway, but yeah, I just really want to know more about his process and what he goes through to take a video game and turn it into a board game. And it's quite interesting to hear him speak, actually, Pete, because I know that when me and you have spoken, or should I say you have spoken to us about the process of making a video game, and when you're first starting out of doing it, you the first thing you do is like boil it down to its core tenets, like the pillars, the things that are going to hold the whole project together. Like, what is it? What are we actually trying to do? Yeah. And he comes at it from exactly the same position. Like when they were adapting Resident Evil, for example, they were like, right, what is Resident Evil? What do you feel when you play it? What are the main mechanics? What are the drivers for it? And they use that to actually push through the development, which is why, you know, me and Kris could attest to this, like why Resident Evil 2 and 3 feel so good and so much like the video games that they are aping. So if you'd like to know more, then please feel free to go to search for We're Not Wizards, and you can hear more of me on there. And I guess while I'm here, Kris and I played Resident Evil 3 the other day at Board Beans in Northwich, and we had a great time.
We did.
Okay.
A much better time than the foursome did on the table next to us, who decided to play Root, having not played it before.
Oh.
That was...
That's not going to go well, is it? Okay, right. Well, I've got one main question for you about Resident Evil 3. It is about Resident Evil 3.
Go on.
Is it better, the worse, or same as Resident Evil 2?
It's better.
Yeah, particularly components-wise.
Components-wise, it's miles better. We spoke about Resident Evil 2 on a previous episode of the podcast, so I won't go over like the mechanics of how it works, because it actually works very, very similarly to Resident Evil 2, which I actually asked Sherwin about on the podcast with Richard, because, you know, they could have easily like changed up some of the formula or done something a lot more drastic with it in order to capture a bigger market, because they are hefty products to buy, like they're plus £100 to buy. So how are you going to capture people who like Resident Evil 2? Well, now you can buy Resi 3, but is it just the same game? Well, yeah, it is kind of the same game, but they make so many quality of life changes, from the components to the box that it comes in, actually having space to house the components. The rule book is just slightly sort of better laid out, and some of the rules are actually like clarified. There is one thing I think they do change, which might sway your decision in terms of either choosing Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 3. And I think that it's basically how the objective and how the campaign system is organised. In Resident Evil 2, it has much more of a drop in and out, and kind of you choose kind of what kind of difficulty you want, what kind of experience you want.
Yep.
You can go through the story linear if you want to, but if you just want to drop in and out, it's actually really simple and easy to do that. However, Resi 3 has more of an open world feeling to it, which is something that, again, Sherwin spoke about on the show, how he wanted to create an open world board game. So one of the things it adds is a map of Raccoon City. And the idea is that you have these 3 locations that you can explore when you first start, but in order to make it to other locations, you have to find certain items to unlock certain pathways. So you have to like find petrol to put in a car to drive to another location. You have to find a key to unlock a gate to go to another location, which is really great and incredibly thematic, because it's all building up to the big sort of clash with Nemesis, but it makes the drop in, drop out a bit more difficult, if you see what I mean. If you just want to kind of just dip into a bit of Resident Evil 3 for an evening without worrying about the campaign, it's a bit more difficult to pick, oh, this scenario looks good, but I get the feeling like you'd just be ruining it if you ever wanted to play the campaign as a whole. But other than that, I think for my mind, 3 is the superior product to have on your shelf, really, component wise and structural wise. I think it's kind of feels like a superior iteration on what they were trying with 2, and they've managed to revamp and redesign and develop into Resi 3.
If you have a food that has been ruined because you've sprayed it across your bathroom, get in touch, stayinginpod@gmail.com. You can also send us a message via Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Just put scent and location, and we'll do the rest.
Yeah, we'll do the rest. We'll put it all together.
Staying in sense.
Yeah.
That would be what a great product. Staying incense will make incense.
Or for Pete, it would be staying incensed.
Yeah. Just
Anyway.
routinely. What else? Spotify, that's there. You can see that in the link in the show notes here. You can go and listen to Chris's list thing. If you're a new listener, subscribe, please, for goodness sake. And if you're not a new listener, tell a friend, please, and leave a review if you want. Apparently they don't help anymore, Dan. Apparently they don't actually.
Yeah, but it helps our self-esteem.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it makes us feel nice.
Makes me sleep at night.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you want to check out Richard Simpson's excellent
Please do.
podcast and website, We Are Not Wizards. And thanks very much to Steamforge for sending us a copy of Resident Evil 3.
All right then.
All right then.
All right then.